Who would be a Wolves fan, eh?
On goes Paul. People might yet win it here for Wolves. Flash in the shot. What a goal!
Good evening, Wolves fans, and welcome back to another review show, whether it be, you're listening to this right now live on YouTube or in your normal podcast places. This is the review of Brighton versus Wolves in association with the Sports Social Podcast Network. And joining me, Jafo, tonight to talk about our draw on the South Coast, as it were, is Stu and Andy. Evening, Stu.
Hello.
Hello. How are you feeling? Because I know the Jets.
We don't want that. Let's just not talk about it. Let's just not even mention it at all.
Fair enough.
I mean,
they're not as good as the Jags, are they?
I feel with the worst team in the entire world, and I've when you feel deflated, I actually feel like I've been punched several times in the chest. I know everyone wants to have a laugh, but I've set myself up for this again every year the same. Yet you have hope. There we are. You have hope, and then this is what happens. It's the best way to not have hope in anything at all in life. But yeah, we'll talk about Brighton in a minute. Hello.
And that's how we start. Nice to see you as well, Andy. It's been a little bit since we've been on together. Always nice to hear your opinions on things. But yeah, get straight into it, mate. Get straight into it. So Wolves, we know we're going to have some slight changes potentially from the previous game against Man City. One of them, the big talking point going into the game was obviously Jose Sarr or Sam Johnston. I'll come to you first, Andy. Obviously, Johnston was not in the side again. Where were you on the sort of the fence? Were you on Team Sarr or Team Johnston?
It's tough, really, because I don't think either keeper has really set the world alight in their games so far this season. Like, they've both been a bit shaky, but Sarr was perfectly fine last week. So going into this week, I assumed Johnston would have been fit again. And I kind of wanted him to stick with Sarr just to keep that, I say, momentum. I know we lost, but we played a little bit better than we have done. I think in the grand scheme of things, it's a coin toss, to be perfectly honest. I don't think either one excels over the other one.
Yeah, I think so. And I think Jose Sarr had sort of earned that shirt, and Stu, in that game against City. And it was a sort of a return to form. Metaphorically going into the Brighton game, really, and weirdly enough, in terms of the blunders, which we'll talk about. But in terms of the Man City game and how he set himself up, it was nice to see him raise his level, wasn't it? And going into this game, there was a lot more confidence from the goalkeeping position. Do you feel that way?
Yeah, you could see how he was holding himself in the warm up and everything. He was a bit like he was in the first season here when he was Player of the Year. Remember, I mean, there's a massive difference. So let's not be silly about this. Sam Johnson is shit, and he always has been. But it's the same old debate, isn't it? If you want to keep it who can pass the ball about properly, you play him. If you want a goalkeeper to save shots, you play Sarr. So I'm always going to go on the side of Sarr. And the whole thing all week was just very bizarre. I didn't understand it one bit. The kind of almost faux arrogance of Gary O'Neill with the whole, I know who I'm playing, and it's not. It's all a bit weird. I don't think it was really called for. He could have just let it be. So we'll decide on Friday, and we'll see what happens. It's Jose's shirt to lose. He played well, but we bought Sam in for a reason. He could have dealt with it a lot better than he did. And all that kind of, I mean, maybe that was just lip service. Maybe it was for the press, and behind the scenes, they all knew all along that he was going to play. But I didn't really agree with it at all.
In fairness, Stu, I sort of get what you're saying, because I know you're a big fan of Sarr. I was kind of not swayed, but I saw earlier on like some save percentages where they compared the two in the 5 games and 4 games, and Johnston's got like a 10% better save percentage.
Yeah,
that's we sort of assumed that Sarr is the better shot stopper of the two.
Oh,
he was throwing him in early doors this season. So like the fact that the number 1 shirt isn't nailed on his, I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. And it does seem like he's raised his game because of it. So maybe that bit of competition might bring out the best in both of them.
Yeah, someone had
that comes out of the thing, doesn't it, at the press conference.
Yeah. Someone made a great point on Twitter about this, that if that 10 million that was spent on Johnston has made Sarr a better keeper, then it's money well spent. And that save percentage over this season is correct, because Sarr was awful to start the season. And it's what happens when you get complacent and when you get lethargic and you've got no competition for 2 years. So competition works. We know it works, but yeah, it was his to lose. And then you go into yesterday, and we'll come into it in a minute, but it was just nice to see. I just didn't agree with the whole why talk about Johnston, that he's trained well and then he's suddenly not in the side or in the squad whatsoever. All a bit strange.
Yeah, I think the keyword you used then, Stu, is sort of arrogance earlier. And there is, do you think, looking at that side, obviously the lineup that came out, there was that sort of a back 5 hybrid again with Ait-Nouri in that left-hand side position, and could go forward. Do you think his arrogance kind of took a battering pre-match so that he had to sort of go with a similar setup to what he had against City? And going on from that, were you surprised with that lineup?
I was surprised that he kept it like it was. Everyone was calling for Doyle, and I think rightly so. That midfield 3 with them, the 3 that were playing before, and never worked. They were all too similar, like we've talked about endlessly. And for the first time, probably since the opening day of the season, I was actually quite excited with that lineup. And I thought, okay, fine. It worked last week. Let's see what happens this week. Let's see if we can push on a bit further than just sitting on the edge of our own 18-yard box and trying to hit them on the break. Maybe that didn't work. But
it was difficult, yeah.
Before the game, I was all for it. I thought, okay, fine. And maybe he did have to swallow a bit of pride and play to what was expected of him after last week.
Yeah, I think so. I think there was a certain call for this hybrid to stay in, but more on the Doyle talking point there, Andy. There's a big swathe of fans who are asking him to, be more involved in this season. And he's been unlucky not to get more minutes. Do you feel like he offers something different, like Stu's saying, to the other 3, so the Andre, Joe Gomez, and Lamina, or do you think he's kind of similar, or maybe just a slight variation of the others?
It feels like he might be a bit more of a hybrid of Lamina and Andre. I mean, I know we've only seen limited minutes of Andre so far, so it's difficult to go on what he is. He looks like he's got a bit more mobility than Andre, but he's got a similar sort of passing range, which I think is what we've needed in this midfield, because Joe Gomez being the attacking of the 3, he's not going to be offering much mobility. Like, as much as we've all sort of grown to love Mario Lamina, he's been terrible this season. So I do feel that we needed someone like Doyle to come in and just refresh it a little bit. I was kind of surprised to see that Andre was the one to make way of the 2. I thought maybe he might have gone with a double pivot and maybe use either Mario or Joe as the sort of box-to-box player. So I was a bit surprised in those terms, but I wasn't surprised to see Doyle get it, because it's what people have been calling for. And like, he played really well against Brighton in the Cup. So just giving him that chance against this team again, I think it makes sense, to be perfectly honest. So I was really pleased to see him get some minutes yesterday.
Yeah, and carrying on from Doyle, obviously the first half we started pretty bright. There was a good chance, which initially fell to Doyle. Cunha does well with it, Stu, and he gets the ball across. And as the ball comes to the edge of the box, what do you think? Do you think Doyle's going to bang this in? Or do you think, are you still in that pessimistic headspace where, okay, yeah, no, he's going to put that over the bar?
I mean, like I said at the time, and again, it's either a blessing or a curse that the Amex has got great Wi-Fi that you can actually sign into and you can communicate with people other than the ones in next to you. That I said it in the group chat straight away that I'd expected that to be pulled back for a foul before the cross came in because of our luck and the way things have gone this season. But I didn't expect it to go in now, because you kind of don't. even though he's got the one against Brentford and he has got form for this on occasion, the way things have been going, it's like, well, it's going to bobble up to him, or something ridiculous is going to happen, and then it went over the bar and it was no surprise. But it was the fact that we actually opened them up relatively easily, especially with like I said earlier, with the formation that it was, and playing pretty defensively that I expected to, and we had glimpses that it wasn't that, and then it all went different, didn't it? After that moment, but no, I didn't expect it to score.
No, I'm probably in the same sort of camp. I mean, he should at least be trying to hit the target.
Yeah.
Do you think? But obviously, we did quite well first half. We up until the very last sort of minutes of it, Andy. I want to get the Welbeck goal out of the way straight away because it's a moment of pure insanity. And I said in the build up when we were talking about Sarr, Andy, about he sort of back to form again. And by that, I mean, he does something completely and utterly insane. And that kick, obviously, talk us through it, because he's kicked it out and it's come straight back at us. So just tell me what you're thinking about it.
I genuinely have no idea how the flight of that ball happened, because he got so much height on it and it didn't arc. It just sort of went up and then dropped like it was filled with concrete. It was just so bizarre the way it happened. But at the same time, I said it on Twitter yesterday when it happened, Sarr's going to get the stick for this goal, but that ball went 40 yards.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not being funny. That ball is far enough away from his goal that you've got several players who should be stopping that ball from getting back into our box. There was a good sort of 4 or 5 players who just sort of left it for the other player to go and track it down. So yes, Sarr did fuck it a little bit, but let's be honest, it was a comedy of errors that led us to then being on the back foot and Welbeck bearing down. And like, we love a sort of bit of a shit striker who doesn't get many goals.
Well,
he loves to score against Wolves. It was the same like fucking Cameron Jerome. Like, he was a terrible player who scored 3 goals a season. Guaranteed 2 of those would be against Wolves. And it's that kind of a thing.
We're not having some slander on Danny Welbeck. You take that back.
He's fine. He just doesn't get a lot of goals. Like, for a striker, he's very much a good season for Welbeck. He's like 7 goals.
He's got 6 already.
Well, this is it. It's like he's having a good season, but he'll get injured and he'll get nothing for the next 6 months.
He ain't played a nice stat on Match Today. He ain't played for England for 6 years. Just saying. Well, they're trying to hype him up on Match Today. But you are right though. It's a ridiculous mistake, and I said that straight away. And I don't know how he's managed to kick it like that. It's a bizarre action to take. I mean, I did get attacked, obviously, because I said that where are the options, which there were none. And we can't. We know he can't be trusted to play short, and rightly so. We don't piss about there. But there was no running off the ball, and this was a case of the whole first half. There was no option. If you're going long, you're going long, and you're trying to win the ball in the air. But that was Trent Larson, and barely hit it to him. But the whole point is, Totti had a fuck up exactly the same as this about 5 minutes earlier. Lost the ball in exactly the same place and got away with it. And no one talks about it. But because it's a goalkeeper, you're screwed when it happens to you. So, but yeah, it's all on him. It's a ridiculous thing to do. Obviously, defenders are not set for that action to happen.
Yeah,
but it's still travelled a pretty far distance, and it's got past 3 players. So it's a great finish from him, but it shouldn't have happened.
No, I agree. I mean, it's just one of those. It's just another blunder. There's a lot of eyes on it because it's the ultimate mistake because it's resulted in a goal. And it's just the way Jose Sarr has been for the past 2-3 years now. It's just you expect things to happen. But going into the half, it was 1-0. Sort of, we're not overly disappointed, with where we've been as a club and where the team's been playing. How are we feeling going into that second half, Stu? Are we quietly optimistic because we're doing all right, and do we think we can get back? I know Brighton's always been a bit of a dodgy hunting ground for us, but the last couple of results there, obviously we drew last season away, and then we drew this season. Do you think it's sort of one of them where it's a team we can start to play against now that they've gone a bit too football hipstery with the management system? Are they becoming less of our? I can't think of the word.
They're playing. They're playing blue and white stripes, and they're not that great, which kind of tallies up to every other bogey side that we have. And they're called Albion, for fuck's sake. So 9 wins in history, by the way, over them in our entire history. 9. No, that first half was awful. Other than the moment we said about Doyle blasted out of the bar, it looked like the down tools at halftime. It looked like they looked shattered. No one had any confidence. It was almost like, okay, we've played our one play here with getting Doyle into that position, and it seemed like that was what the design was for the entire half. And then once that didn't happen, it all seemed a bit flat, which is bizarre considering the situation we're in. And you're thinking, okay, you've had an entire week here. You didn't play midweek. We got away with it. You think, okay, you've impressed, reset and start again. And no one reset after that miss. It was like, okay, we've lost now. And it seems a really bizarre mentality. And I don't know what it was. It just, and that goal going in, everyone was just deflated. Like no one was talking to each other at half time. It was like we were about 7-0 down. It was really weird. And then there was all the jokes and stuff, wasn't there? So, how many subs is he going to make? 1, probably. And then he didn't, and he was actually brave, and fair play to him for a change. But no, halftime was grim.
Yeah, and it was sort of, antithesis of like what we've been doing this season, Andy. And as Stu says, there's a lot of sluggishness in the way that we were doing things. There was a couple of moments of brilliance, like obviously the Doyle chance. How are you feeling about the way that the side's playing in the last, let's say the first 9 games this season? How because we've not spoken too much about it, and we've not had you on to give your opinion on it. But how do you feel like O'Neill has set the system up, and do you think there's massive changes that can be done to get a more positive situation out of it?
It's difficult, isn't it? Because it feels like every slight error we make, the ball ends up in the back of our net every single time. Whether it's like just the tiniest mistake or the biggest mistake, it always ends up the same way. And like, I'm not going to talk about luck because I think luck's nebulous. Like it's not real. There's a certain mentality of working hard that seems to be lacking slightly. I think at points, there's almost this. We've spoke about it before. There's this mentality at the club where something goes wrong, and then all of a sudden the players lose their heads.
And then it happens again.
We'll get to it in a little bit, obviously, with our second goal, but we should never have been 4 against 1 at the back. We got very fortuitous that it was a dog shit pass that Doyle picked up. But the fact that Doyle was the last man against 4 defenders, like where are the other players? I just don't feel like the players have got this maturity to handle a game. And it does kind of worry me because we've gone this point against some big clubs now, and we've sort of accepted that we're going to lose before we've even kicked a ball, which is really damning. And it puts such pressure on next week, which I'm sure we're going to get to that as well in a moment. But how can you go and say like, oh, they were the top half teams, we'd expect to lose. So now he's at the point where the next time we lose, all of a sudden we're back in the shit. And with Palace winning today, we're still more than 1 win away from safety. Yeah. After 9 games, that's not a good sign at all.
No,
I think we're better than where we should be. Yeah, I do think we're better than our position, but we need to show it. And I don't think we have.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, 100%. But going into the second half, as you said, Stu, there was a surprise, big surprise. 2 substitutions. It's very unnatural for Gary O'Neill to do that. Maybe you put an extra sugar in his coffee in the morning. But it was a return to the 4 at the back, essentially, with Carlos Forbes coming on for Totti and the returning hero, the Spaniard, the who scored the winner against Tottenham last season. Let's not forget, absolute banger, Pablo Sarabia. Were you? I know you already said you were surprised, but to see Carlos Forbes has been involved, but Pablo Sarabia, he's been in the wasteland. Sure. Yeah. He's been trapped in the football bench purgatory, as it were. He's always been standing there warming up, and he's never been, he's always been the bridesmaid, never the bride in terms of Gary O'Neill this season. So bringing him on, were you surprised to see Sarabia being involved?
Yeah, because he hasn't, like you said, he hasn't even been mentioned, has he? And he's probably the most divisive player we've had for a long, long time. And he has almost been frozen in carbonite for the last 6 months. Like, where's he been? He just vanished off the face of the earth. And I know he gives the ball away, but he also tries a lot more than a lot of other players do. So he's naturally going to give the ball away. And he does do it in some stupid areas at times. But for someone who's got no pace, who can't really move very well, he's as closest thing to a maverick that we've got here. And sometimes when you're in the shit like we are, you need something different. You need something special. And Carlos Forbes is not that. I mean, I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole again because he's young. He's got age on his side compared to what Adama did. Adama never got better, and he still hasn't. Carlos Forbes might, but he's very young, so we give him the benefit of the doubt for now. The fact that he was hooked after coming on as sub is not a good sign for anyone, is it? But Sarabia, I've liked him from day one. I know Little Dan hates him. Little Dan hates him so much he forgot what time this was going out because his mind's so crowded. It wasn't because he's in America. It's because Sarabia came on and it's broken him again. But yeah, he did Sarabia things. He went missing for large periods of the game, but then when you need him, he pops up. What more can you want?
Yeah, I think it was interesting to see him come back in, and it's a player that I've been shouting for a lot this season because I think, as you say, he's a maverick. He's a bit of a game changer, and he sort of fits perfectly into this number 10 role within this system, Andy. That I feel like we should be playing. And going into that second half, obviously Lamina got hooked, so we got two midfielders there, Joao Gomez and Tommy Doyle. Does that feel a little bit more balanced as a setup to have the double pivot at the base and then three players enjoying football behind your traditional number 9? Does that feel like should be the plan moving forward?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we'd said early doors this season that the sort of balance of the squad feels like it should be a 4-2-3-1 with the double pivot. That feels a little bit more natural to how we've built this team. Because like that 3 central midfielders thing, we've said time and again, it doesn't really work. It doesn't suit any of the individuals to it. But I think having the 2 pivots, that seems a lot better. In regards to the 2 subs, I thought that Forbes did all right when he came on. I understand why he hooked him towards the end, just to bring on that fresh pair of legs, because he did look like he run himself into the ground a little bit. So I don't know if there's question marks over his fitness. But I thought he did well. Him and Ait-Nouri linked up pretty well down that left. Sarabia, he's never going to run past the defender. We know this. But he didn't need to, because he can just stand 5-10 yards further back and just dictate the play. He can get Cunha in behind because he's got a much more progressive vision than I think pretty much anybody else has in our team who can play in a forward role. He's going to be looking at players making these runs and he's going to dictate it. And he would be better at that than putting Joao Gomez in that position, which is sort of where Gomez had been playing, who's just a bit of, a bull at a china shop at times, head down and run. He's going to take that touch. He's going to slow it down. He's going to look around. Sarabia could be key to actually creating stuff. And I hope that he could end up getting JSL a little bit more involved, because I don't feel we've played to his strengths whatsoever. No. But I think that he's probably the best one to pick out a decent cross, Sarabia. So maybe giving him more minutes in the team might bring out the best in a number.
See again.
We lost Andy there for a minute.
This is Dan. He's praising
Sarabia. It's got to be.
But he's right. I mean, you look at Sarabia and you think, if you put the best thing to do is to put Sarabia on the right hand side, because then you've got Semedo overlapping to give you the pace there. That's the ideal solution to it. I mean, we've seen him before on the right and it's never quite worked. But Nelson seems to have a new lease of life this season out of nowhere. And he's back.
Yeah,
Nelson Semedo was excellent. Sorry about that. Yeah,
Semedo we reckon like Little Dan did it on purpose because you were talking up Sarabia. But obviously we said that's how we feel going forward would be a good setup, but we shot ourselves in the foot again. obviously went 2-0 down. Evan Ferguson, he's a fantastic young footballer. Who, you know, he's another one who tends to score a lot of goals. Seems to have scored against us a few times. It's another one, Stu, where we're trying to get back in the game. We're pushing, and then it just felt preventable again as a goal that we've conceded. Like a lot of the goals that we conceded this season all felt preventable, and it frustrates you, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it's a brilliant finish. No keeper's saving that. It's as in the corner as you can possibly ask for, and it's typical that he has been through a bit of a dry spell. He has been on the bench quite a lot because of the form of Welbs, despite what Andy says. And you think, well, yeah, exactly like we talked about with the first goal. Look how many players are around him when he has that shot away. And you think, oh, come on. And I know one of them is Doyle there, and he's thrown his body at the ball, but still, there's multiple times in that move that you've got to do better. And I mean, I'm more shocked at what came afterwards than that because I mean, not from the third of the away end, which just got up and left. Which, on one hand, you can kind of understand because of it's Brighton away and the time of the game, but it's your own fault. Don't leave.
I mean, there is a certain level of apathy at the moment, Andy, with the way that the performances have been going, and going 2-0 away, 2-0 away from home against a side who, it should be seeing this game out. You can't bemoan people leaving in the current state of affairs, can you?
I get it. It's a long ass journey as well to Brighton, isn't it? So I sort of understand why you think, fuck it, let's get back on the road and let's get back to WV1. It's understandable. Like Stu just said, like that ball, much like the first goal, the ball travelled a long way without any challenges being put in.
Yeah.
And it's in the back of our net again. And you just think, well, what's doing here? Like, it's just miserable, isn't it? I looked on Twitter when that second goal went in, and literally every Wolves-based journalist was like, well, 2-0. Game over. Wolves have lost. Look, within seconds of it, everyone had just given up on it, and I understand it because, let's be honest, we've seen this so many times this season already, where the players have given up at this point.
Yeah.
The
most fun thing about that whole situation was a lot of people, because of the bars being open at Brighton after the game as well. There's a lot of people just got up, even people who were on the coach, so they couldn't go anywhere at all anyway. They got up and left just to get a quick extra point in. So they were still in the ground. They were just down in the concourse.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it is it's a very Wolves 2024-25 goal to concede. That is, you are right there. It's like you can almost script it how many times it seems to happen this way. Like how many worldies have gone against us.
Okay. But obviously, the feeling was maybe that the corner flag picture was ready to go. O'Neill's already started packing his suitcase. He's saying his goodbyes in the dugout, and then we get a bit of luck, which is surprising. Obviously, we got a set piece. The ball comes across to Dawson. It gets a little bounce, and in comes our favourite left back, Ryan Ait-Nouri, to bury a nice chance there, Stu, to make it 2-1. He's not he's not surprising to see him involved in the goals this season. He's now joint top goal scorer for this season, is he? If I'm thinking correct.
With Strand Larsen, probably, yeah.
Yeah.
But he's always had this strike on him, hasn't he? Even from his debut in Palace in lockdown, he's got this about him. He just doesn't do it. He doesn't get there enough for me. He's one of them. Like what was that stat that Gully put up earlier about Guardiola? How far in the opposition half he is at all times. He's like higher than anyone else. Like even defenders, it's mental. If you've got a player like that, use him like that. And I know that's why we've got this hybrid 4-5 thing to get the best out of him. But he doesn't get in the box enough for me, and he has got that ability about him, and it's a great strike. I mean, maybe if he had time to think about it, it might not have been such a great strike. And he's one of them things. It's more of a fuck it than anything else, because what's he got to lose blasting it by there? But nevertheless, we can claim we scored from a set piece after that bloke's been sacked. So There we go.
Yeah, that's the big change in it, Andy. The set piece coach goes, and then not only 2 weeks later we've scored from a set piece.
Yeah,
by
it's
proxy,
the perfect
by
way
proxy.
for O'Neill to say, "I was right to sack this turd."
I told you so.
Because look what's happened now. Yeah, so it did work, but still can't defend them for shit. But we looked a little bit more dangerous. I quite liked Craig Dawson's air kick. Like he tried a scissor kick in the 6-yard box just before the. I appreciated that. I quite liked Dawson throughout that second half. Actually, played quite aggressive. Played on the front foot. Thought that was good to see. So him being there and thereabouts when the corners were going, it was no surprise based on how he was playing before that. But it's good. Is it 3 and 4 now? Is it for Ryan, or 4 and 5? Something crazy like that. So it's good to see he's starting to get some contributions as well now.
Yeah, man, we haven't really spoken about, and you brought up Craig Dawson then, but Santi Bueno being involved against you, and how did you feel he played yesterday? Before we come on to the magic moment from Cunha, how did you feel the Santi Bueno was?
He's a very strange player to kind of describe, because, like Brett said there in the comments, I mean, Santi and Dawson must be the slowest pair in England, and they probably are. But with him, it doesn't seem to matter because his positioning's so good, and it's just bizarre that he was left out in the cold, and he was the one who was being prepped to be sent out on loan if we got someone else in when he's coming, and he hasn't really done much wrong for me. I mean, you look at the ball he played through last week, superb, and we've been crying out for a defender like this. And when we had one in Mascara, who's we're not going to see for a year, maybe ever again, and I thought he was fine. Other than that, he could have probably done better when we talked about the goals. But again, they're great finishes, so it's one and the other. But his overall game, I thought he was fine. I didn't think he was caught out of position that much. I thought he was composed where he needed to be, and again, he's got a good knack of being in the right place at the right time, and he can get his foot in as well, which I didn't kind of expect from him when he came in last season. You think, well, he's one of these players from there. I know certain countries have got certain mentalities, but to look at him and the fact that he looks like he's headbutting many brick walls, you know what I mean? He doesn't carry himself like he's a bit of a thug, but he can get stuck in when he needs to.
I really like Santi. I think his positional awareness meant that Dawson could be a bit more aggressive in the tackle. So Dawson could push up, and he was making challenges in the Brighton half to win the ball back, because he knew that if he was out of position, that ball over the top, Bueno was a good sort of 10, 20 yards deeper that he could mop it up. He was very rarely out of position, but he guarded at the space behind really well, I thought, yesterday. Like Stu said, I don't understand why he's been the one who's been out in the cold. He's similar to Mascara, but I feel like Mascara's got a rawness that Bueno doesn't have.
Yeah, I think you're right with that. I think he's an accomplished looking defender. He's somebody who, when he's played, he's always seemed like he's got a leadership quality about him, and he never seems to do things that are stupid or do things that put the team at risk, which is something that you sort of, it's obvious you need that in that position. Yeah. It's just quality and a skill that if you have in every player, it's fantastic. But coming on, obviously we have Cunha, just an absolute magic moment after, and you talked about it earlier, Andy. Tommy Doyle, I've got the visions, Stu, of sort of that Game of Thrones episode where you've got Jon Snow, facing the marauding army, standing there with his sword. That 4v1, Brighton really, I don't want to say fucked it up, but they fucked it up. Brighton 4v1. How did they not score that?
I mean, I was that excited. I could have been standing there with my sword at the end. I mean, it was. I mean, it's almost Tommy fucking Doyle is his official name there, because whenever he turns up, he turns it on. I mean, like we said, he was bad in the first half, but everyone was. But second half in the midfield too, like that, he was superb. And it's just, I mean, his interview as well afterwards. That 4-minute clip, everyone can go and see it on Twitter, and he's just a magnificent person and a magnificent footballer, and his technical ability is superb. And you look at that and you think, yeah, we should be done. It should be game over. It should be 3-1, or at the very, very least, take it into the corner from there. And you get a few moans, but the game's over. The game's won. And it's reckless stupidity to give the ball away there. But saying that, do you expect the ball to then go down 2/3 of the pitch in a sweeping pass like that? Probably not. And it's a wonderful pass into Cunha, and then the rest is history. But yeah, it was Tommy Doyle's brilliant.
And sorry for the audio listeners, but I'm going to play a little clip here. It's from a Brighton YouTuber who called Luke Links. It's surfaced on Twitter. You might have seen it already, but I want you to drink it in, Wolves fans, because this is fun. I'll just play the little clip for you now, and this is Cunha's goal, the equaliser at the Amex. Enjoy.
Loads of space, too much space. Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! Oh my God! It is an upset. Oh Lord! I can't believe it. I cannot believe it. This is absolutely ridiculous. This is ridiculous.
So Andy, is it ridiculous? I think it might be.
Like, as a slight aside, how fucking annoying must that be being sat next to that?
No.
Like the whole game, just videoing it, commentate, just shut the fuck up and watch the match. I was certain that Cunha was going to fuck that because he slowed it down. I was like, what are you doing? Just hit it, play it, just do anything other than what you're doing now. And then he just sort of poked it towards goal and it somehow ended up. At first I thought, oh, that's hit the bar, that's come out. I didn't know what was happening. And then he just sort of, it rustles into the back of the net. And like, it's such a cliche to talk about limbs, but to watch the Wolves fans, the way they went at that was just incredible.
Yeah, I mean, behind the curtain that I was going to host this tonight, but my voice I didn't expect to hold up as well as it kind of has, because especially without. I mean, Andy, remember Brentford the first day I met you, and I nearly broke your back.
Yeah, that sounds wrong, but yeah.
I mean, it was an exciting result. I mean, thank God for Helder Costa that day. But that kind of enthusiasm, my little small mom was next to me, so she got the full power of 16 stone jumping on it. She didn't care. No one cared. It was chaos, and it was up there with 40-year-old men here, Andy, and we could be talking about limbs proudly, because that was one of the moments where no one really celebrated the first goal, because it's we've got one back, we know it's pretty much nothing, but that was so unexpected. And I think that the way it went in as well, like you said, it was carnage, it was deflection, it was on the bar, it was in the net side of the net, and it was one of them goals that you only saw on the best football game in the world, Pro Evo 2021, with real physics, where it goes in and you think, this doesn't happen in real life, and then it does, and you think, okay, brilliant. But it was top 5 limbs of the last decade. It was unreal.
It's crazy. It is absolutely insane. And to get a point there, it feels important. But to bring us back down to a little bit, I've started a couple of comments from YouTube. One here being from Mason Brown. He puts, lads, is this point versus Brighton a bit premature? You know, we've got the 6 points against Palace next week. Lose to Palace was 7 points adrift. Mm-hmm. Does it feel that way? Do you think it feels that way, Andy, that if we lose next week to Palace, we're not even back at square one. We're at -1, really, with the gap. Yeah,
100%. It's yesterday was nice and lovely, and we can all enjoy that. But let's be perfectly honest now. I said earlier, we've given up pretty much 8 games of this season. Our season starts now. A quarter of the way in is not acceptable. So I'm just trying to get the fixtures up for the next ones, because it's not just Palace, is it? Palace is merely the start of Palace, Southampton, Fulham away. Okay, we've got a bit of a piss poor record there. Bournemouth at home, another one we've got a bad record. Everton. these are teams we've got to be looking at beating. I think between now and probably Boxing Day, if we lose two of those games, that'll be a really bad return based on the fact that we've lost 7 already. So like, we just can't afford any slip-ups at this point, which is such a worrying thing to be talking about when we're not even halfway through the season yet. So this run is going to define our year. I really do. I genuinely believe that. So if we don't beat Palace, if we don't beat Southampton, to be honest, I think if we get less than 7 points out of our next 3 games, get rid, because it's not going to get any better. And I'll be honest, I still would rather have got rid of him after Villa. I think that was the moment for him to have gone. And I stand by that. Like, I don't particularly want him here. I don't trust him to take us further. But this next couple of months, it's do or die for the whole season.
Yeah, completely agree.
You're in the same. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted him gone after Chelsea. And for the reasons that, as I said at the time, that we've seen this before. And you've seen the writing on the wall, and he very, very rarely gets turned around. And yeah, he did it last year. I mean, I said the same thing on WM to Daz on Friday night, that he did it last year, and fair play. But then he also lost the entire last third of the season, and it was not all of it was down to him, but 2/3 of that run was down to him. And you look and you think, okay, you still haven't turned it around. A point away at Brighton is a good result, regardless of who you are. Regardless of our terrible record there. And then you come away from thinking, yeah, fair enough. It's decent. It's a stepping stone. It's something to build on. David Burns, a comment there, we're celebrating a point against Brighton. Is this what Wolves have become? I saw us lose 4-1 at the Withdean to Brighton when we were in the playoffs. We've always got to buy them. So yeah, I'll take a point against Brighton every single year. But it was... To go there, I mean, it took 3.5 hours to get there, 4 hours to get back. One of them things you think, it's a nightmare. No one really likes going there. Even though they're nice people, always had good fun down there. They're one of the fan bases that are not full of bellends, which is nice. But you think, okay, we've got a point there. It's something to build on. And then you look at the Palace result today and you think, yeah, okay. That foundation is now shook already with less than 24 hours later. And now it's do or die. And for Gary O'Neill to come out then yesterday and moan the fact that he said he should have played a back 4 to start with. Why the fuck didn't you then? Grow a pair of bollocks. He's basically saying he pandered to what everyone wanted him to do, and then everyone else was wrong, and he should have stuck to his morals. Well, sorry, you're the manager. You're the guy being paid the big bucks. You've got the 4-year contract. You're the one in charge. And if you're going to come out with shit like this, still, when you should be just. Okay, you've got Tommy Doyle's got you out of the shit. Probably saved your job. The first thing you want to do is have a dig at people. Nah, fuck off, man. Yeah. I'm not saying I'd rather have lost yesterday because obviously I don't want us to lose any game. But if it would have meant he was removed from position, then maybe we've lost something here. Because can I see us getting 7 points from the next 3 games? No, because something mental will happen again. And at one point, like under Large, it was gone. Everything was gone. But yesterday, that last 5 minutes, like I said to you, like the last 5 minutes there, we showed more fight in them 5 minutes than we have for 5 weeks. Yeah. And it kind of shows, okay, the players are behind him. Well, if they are behind him, then Saturday's your time to show this for the entire game and not just for 5 minutes when you think, okay, the cushy little ride's over now because we're going to have someone who's going to do the job properly. So it's do or die for him. He's bought this on himself. And you look at the results today. And you could result throughout the season that the whole nonsense of, like Andy said about, oh yeah, we've sacrificed 8 games, which we have. We've sacrificed nearly a quarter of the season for nothing when we got 14 points from the evil 6 last season. So that doesn't matter now because we're playing with a back 4. It's all bollocks. It's ridiculous. So they're on him now. It's on him. He's bought this on himself. If he doesn't get 7 points, he deserves to be sacked.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I'm very much gone in and have been for a long time, but there has to be a point at which the levy breaks, and these games and this run of games now, as you say, Andy, until Boxing Day is crucial. I think you make a good point there, Stu, about sort of a level of arrogance from O'Neill. Do you feel, Andy, that sort of that there's a chink in the armour, him sort of bending the last two games and going back to this sort of almost kind of but back five? I don't want to say the words, O'Neill, you know. Do you think that sort of it's almost not a flexibility? It's almost like if you get like an old school ruler and you take it too far and you're pressing it on the edge of a desk and it eventually snaps. Do you think that's sort of where O'Neill is in terms of his management style at the moment?
A little bit, because I get it last week because it's Man City. I understand wanting a third centre back in the team to give us that bit more rigidity at the back. But yesterday, with his beliefs that, a back four is the right way to go, why didn't you run with it? And you can't come out and blame Wolves. Fancast said we should be playing a back five. So that's why no, mate, it's not on us. Like Stu said, you're the one who gets paid the money to make these decisions. If that's the right decision, fuck the fans, make the right decision and do or die by it. And it doesn't feel like he does. He doesn't feel like he's got the courage of his convictions at times. And that kind of comes across a little bit in his interviews because he does come across like a bit of a cocky prick. Whether it's gone well or it's gone badly for him, he's kind of dislikable, if I'm perfectly honest.
Do you think that sort of Monday Night Football last season, Stu, do you think that was sort of a turning point for him in terms of his confidence and we saw this sort of personality change and not sort of the big I am, maybe verging on the big I am, but sort of having that confidence that now he hasn't got the results to back that attitude up? Do you feel like that was a turning point for him?
I don't think that was a turning point. I think whatever happened in the summer, I think the Leipzig game especially kind of went to his head, and it's always the whole thing, isn't it? You can't base anything on pre-season. And there's a great comment there from Matt Bradley saying he'll be a good manager one day. We just can't afford to let him learn on the job and make mistakes with us, which is spot on. And you look at it and you think, well, this is what my stance is. I mean, I can give him time because what are we going to get? We're going to get Rob Edwards. We all know we are. I mean, my dream boat is not going to come unless Everton sack him. So the next best thing is probably Rob Edwards. So you look at it and you think, well, what do you really want? Do you want Gary O'Neill to be better? And do you want Gary O'Neill of post Man City game last season and before February? Do you want that Gary O'Neill for him to somehow manage to sort this nonsense out and get back to where he was at that point in time? If he can do that, then we've got a great manager on our hands. But so far, we're nearly in November, and we haven't seen that since, March, maybe? And you look at it and you think, well, that's plenty of time. That's more than enough time to turn anything around. And we can, like Andy said, you can blame luck all you want. Sometimes it's just not going to get better. But the arrogance thing, I think he seems to have a chip on his shoulder a little bit in a kind of Mourinho way, where he's got nowhere near the back catalogue of work to back it up yet. And you can't go around saying the stuff that he does and acting the way he has the last few weeks when you've not won a game against someone who isn't in the Championship for the last half a year. So maybe he does need a bit of humble pie. Maybe he did need this kind of, you are not the best thing in the world. And now if we go and beat Palace, we beat Southampton, come out the other side of it, and we end up on a run and finishing the top half and get me 200 quid, then great. We all say, okay, you've learnt your lesson. We go again next season. I can't see.
Yeah. I think the lack of pragmatism since probably the Chelsea game, there should have been a return to pragmatism, a focus on clean sheets, Andy, but there really hasn't been. And the feel like going back to basics should have been early doors in this season, really, shouldn't it? And we feel like we haven't done that, and we've kind of tried to progress with an idea that doesn't work.
Yeah, we've taken some embarrassing matches. Even if the scoreline hasn't been, the performances have been turgid, let's be perfectly honest. Even when they've been good, they've not been good. I just don't think it's been there. There is something to be said for just going for, you know what, let's just shut up shop from minute one. Let's just shit out a 0-0 draw and get over the line. If we'd have done that against Villa, if we'd have done that against pretty much any of the half-decent clubs in this league, we'd have been feeling a little bit more confident than we are now. Now with more than one win, we're starting to get cut off from 17th. And that is so depressing at this point of the season. That's the kind of thing you start talking about in like March. That's when you should worry about it then, not when we're just about to enter November. It's, yeah, you're right. Pragmatism is what he seems to lack. Just sort of persisting with nonsense. You could clearly see that 3-man midfield needed some rebalancing. It needed some addressing. And he just persisted with playing Andre, who was doing well, breaking it up, but didn't have enough else as an outlet, whether that was because Mario's not the player to be alongside him or because Joao is off doing whatever Joao wants to do. There was clearly something amiss there, and it took him until halftime yesterday to actually make a change.
Yeah, and you look at it.
Yesterday, that's the first time, sorry, Stu, that's the first time that I'll hold my hands up and say that Gary O'Neill did something positive with substitutions that did well in the game. Because we've spoke about that at length, that he doesn't affect games, but he did yesterday. So fair play, well done there.
But if then we rock up on Saturday with 3 in midfield again, what's he learned?
Growing the number 10, back to basic bullshit again. Yeah.
When you look at, this is for the guys on Thursday or Friday in the week, but you look at it and you think, well, who's actually played well here? Tommy Doyle now is nailed on to start for me from that performance. If you're playing it,
he's on the fucking bench.
Yeah, of course he is. You play midfield 2. If you persist with the back 4, you have to do whatever 4-5.
Mm-hmm.
If you're playing them, the players that we finish the game with, fine, whatever. But we can't play 3 in midfield again. It doesn't work. None of them like it. None of them can do it. They all play better in a 2 from what we've seen, other than Andre, who's great, but obviously jet lagged. And we'll probably not see him again now for 3 months because he's probably said something bad. But you know what I mean? So it's now for Saturday, Tommy Doyle +1. If he does anything else, he's asking for it.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Yeah. And I think that's probably sort of a good point because obviously we've got the preview show coming up. That's a nice point for us to end, really. That although we're happy about the draw, there's still a lot of hard yards to be done going into these next sort of 5, 6, 7 games. So I appreciate you guys coming on and sort of talking out your pains and your sufferings. And I appreciate everyone who's took part in the YouTube comment section and through Twitter as well. And yeah, hopefully Crystal Palace continues in a positive direction. And I hope that everyone who's here has a fantastic week. If you are listening to this on the way to work, have a great day at work. Any other time, I hope you're having a good time. And if not, hope better times come around real quick. Hopefully like us. So I will bid you adieu. And it's goodbye from Stu.
This is real pain. It doesn't get this bad. Believe. Goodbye.
For the audio listeners, that is a Jets jersey. It's not even a real sport.
I'm not wearing it because I threw it on the floor in anger. I'm wearing this USA thing from the thing. It doesn't even fucking fit. It's so tight now because I'm much bigger than I was this time last year that I can't bear that green and white shit on me today. But this. If you support the Jets as well, you never have fun. At least it's not that bad, people. Goodbye.
That's one hell of a sign off. And how do you follow that, mate?
Oh, well, I mean, in fairness, I'm currently looking at the Seattle Seahawks 14-3 down at home to the Bills. So I'm not in a much better mood, to be honest.
Yeah, but at least the Bills are a good team.
Yeah, I suppose. That is true. That's something at least.
I've got Clemson and they're doing well. So, hey, let's go. Yeah, catch you all next time, Wolves fans. I don't know how we ended up there, but have a good time, everyone.